Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to explore a topic that so many of us at one point or another feel in the quiet of our lives: the loneliness of being a woman with no friends. It's a journey filled with unique experiences, sometimes born out of necessity, sometimes from choices made, and at times simply from the unpredictable waves of life. But beneath this seemingly isolating reality lies a powerful path of discovery, resilience, and growth. When we think about friendship, we think about connection, laughter, and shared memories. But what happens when life unfolds differently? When we find ourselves in a space where friends are few or even absent? It's in this space that we have the opportunity to look inward, to redefine our sense of belonging, and to question the very meaning of connection. Being a woman with no friends does not mean being a woman without love, purpose, or fulfillment. Instead, it can mean becoming the architect of our own lives and learning to create a different kind of companionship, one with ourselves. Imagine yourself sitting alone, wrestling with thoughts that amplify your sense of isolation. Maybe you're questioning your worth, wondering why friendships have slipped away, or feeling that somehow being without friends reflects a personal flaw. This is when self-compassion becomes an essential ally, offering a healing balm for the wounds we often inflict upon ourselves. In the quiet spaces where loneliness echoes the loudest, self-compassion invites us to extend the same kindness, patience, and understanding to ourselves that we would readily offer to a loved one. Self-compassion asks us to look at ourselves through a gentle lens. We all carry stories, past experiences, and moments of vulnerability that sometimes cloud our view of who we are. Perhaps we grew up in environments that taught us we had to be perfect to be loved, or maybe we've internalized messages that were too much or not enough. But with self-compassion, we can start unraveling these narratives, realizing they're not truths about who we are, but rather stories we've carried along the way. A powerful part of self-compassion is the willingness to accept that loneliness and setbacks are a shared human experience. It's a universal truth that everyone, no matter how strong or successful, has known moments of isolation and uncertainty. When we recognize this, we start to see ourselves not as isolated beings who must suffer alone, but as people who share in the joys and sorrows that make up life. Self-compassion allows us to stop feeling like we are somehow outside the realm of connection just because we are without close friends. We realize that loneliness doesn't mean we are unlovable, it simply means we are human. There's also an element of forgiveness involved in self-compassion. It's a chance to forgive ourselves for mistakes we think we made, for relationships we feel we didn't nurture well enough, for times when we weren't our best selves. This act of forgiving ourselves is crucial because it frees us from carrying around the weight of self-blame. It says, I am allowed to be imperfect. I am allowed to grow from my past without letting it define me. Practicing self-compassion isn't a one-time act, it's a daily commitment to self-acceptance. It's learning to quiet that inner critic who tells us we're inadequate and replacing it with an inner nurturer who reminds us we're worthy of love and understanding. When we show ourselves compassion, we cultivate a wellspring of resilience and self-acceptance that no one else has the power to give us. We learn to be our own friend, a friend who will be there on the good days and the hard days alike, a friend who will love us through all seasons of life. Self-compassion transforms loneliness into a profound act of self-care, allowing us to build a foundation of inner peace that doesn't rely on the presence of others. We come to see our solitude as a time to nurture ourselves, to invest in our own well-being, and to become a person who values and respects themselves deeply. And when we finally learn to stand strong in our self-compassion, we find that being alone doesn't have to be a void, it can become a sanctuary where we come home to ourselves. When we think about vulnerability, it's natural to imagine a fragile state, one where we feel exposed, as if others can see the parts of ourselves we wish to keep hidden. Vulnerability has a way of revealing the sides of us that feel raw, unpolished, and imperfect. Yet, ironically, it's in our vulnerable moments that we uncover some of the greatest sources of strength, resilience, and connection. Embracing vulnerability can be one of the most liberating steps on the journey of self-discovery, especially for a woman who finds herself walking through life with few close friendships. Vulnerability can feel especially difficult in isolation because there isn't anyone there to reassure us, to tell us it's okay, or to help us process the fears and insecurities that arise. When there's no one around to catch us, being vulnerable seems almost dangerous, as though it risks leading us to more hurt and loneliness. But in reality, vulnerability doesn't mean simply being exposed. It means having the courage to show up fully as we are, even when we are alone. The path of vulnerability invites us to look at our own imperfections, our own fears, and our insecurities, not as weaknesses to be hidden, but as unique markers of our humanity. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we begin to break down the walls that we often build to protect ourselves. These walls may have kept pain out at some point, but they can also prevent us from truly experiencing life and embracing the fullness of who we are. Being vulnerable means owning our feelings, even when they're uncomfortable. It's about allowing ourselves to feel sadness, disappointment, and even shame rather than shoving those emotions aside. There's a misconception that vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, but in truth, it takes immense courage to confront these feelings head on. When we stop resisting our emotions and start acknowledging them, we take a significant step towards inner strength. Vulnerability then is not about being weak, it's about being brave enough to embrace the messy, uncertain parts of our journey. This courage to be vulnerable also leads to incredible personal growth. In the space of vulnerability, we learn to be honest with ourselves. We begin to recognize the beliefs we hold about our worth, our lovability, and our place in the world. We see the stories we've created about why we may not have close friendships and challenge those stories. Maybe we tell ourselves we're too much or not enough. Perhaps we've come to believe that isolation is simply our fate. But vulnerability allows us to question these beliefs, to lay them bare, and to rewrite them in ways that honor our true selves. Moreover, vulnerability opens us to authenticity. By learning to be vulnerable in our own presence, we become more attuned to what truly matters to us, rather than what we think should matter or what we think others expect. This authenticity becomes a powerful foundation for all future connections, as it invites people into our lives in a way that is real and genuine. Embracing vulnerability means we're no longer striving to be perfect or putting on a facade. Instead, we're showing up as we are, and in doing so, we invite others to do the same. Vulnerability also builds resilience, a form of emotional strength that allows us to face life's challenges with a grounded, steady heart. When we embrace our own vulnerability, we start to see that we can handle the difficult emotions, the setbacks, and the moments of loneliness that come our way. We realize that we don't need to shield ourselves from pain to be okay. This resilience empowers us to face each day with a sense of wholeness, knowing that we can rise above whatever comes. Lastly, embracing vulnerability allows us to develop a deeper compassion for others. When we understand what it means to be vulnerable ourselves, we're less likely to judge others for their struggles. We become more compassionate, more understanding, and more open-hearted. This empathy, even when practiced alone, becomes a powerful guide as we navigate relationships in the future. Vulnerability teaches us to see others with kindness because we've learned to see ourselves that way first. So for a woman with few friends, vulnerability is not a burden, but a bridge. It's a bridge from self-criticism to self-acceptance, from isolation to resilience, and from fear to courage. It's an invitation to embrace the strength that comes from owning every part of who we are, even the parts we once felt were best kept hidden. By embracing vulnerability, we uncover an extraordinary depth within ourselves, one that doesn't need to hide, but stands confidently, fully, and powerfully in its truth. Emotional resilience is often thought of as the ability to bounce back from adversity, But it's so much more than simply enduring hard times. It's about cultivating a strength within ourselves that allows us not only to survive difficulties, but to learn, grow, and thrive through them. For a woman navigating life with few close friends, emotional resilience becomes an invaluable companion. It's the inner resource that empowers us to handle loneliness, setbacks, and all the highs and lows of life with a steady heart and a hopeful spirit. Developing emotional resilience is not a quick fix or a single moment of change. It's a process that unfolds through practice, patience, and self-awareness. It begins by acknowledging that life is filled with both joy and struggle, and that our emotional landscape will inevitably reflect that. It's normal to feel a wide range of emotions, especially when we're facing challenges alone. Resilience doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring these feelings. Rather, it means learning how to process them in a way that allows us to regain our balance and continue forward. One of the foundational steps in building resilience is recognizing the importance of emotional awareness. This involves taking the time to understand our emotions instead of brushing them aside. When we feel lonely, sad, or overwhelmed, we don't immediately push those feelings away. Instead, we pause, take a breath, and allow ourselves to experience them. We ask ourselves questions like, what am I really feeling right now, and what might this emotion be trying to tell me? Emotional resilience requires us to be honest with ourselves about what we're experiencing, which helps us gain greater control over how we respond to those feelings. Another essential aspect of emotional resilience is self-regulation, the ability to manage our emotions in healthy and constructive ways. Life without close friends might mean that, at times, we lack someone to talk to about our frustrations, fears, or dreams. But developing resilience means learning to self-soothe and find balance within ourselves. We practice techniques like deep breathing, journaling, or meditation to center ourselves when emotions feel overwhelming. In doing so, we become our own support system, capable of calming and steadying ourselves even in difficult moments. Resilience also involves reframing our mindset about challenges. Instead of viewing setbacks or disappointments as insurmountable obstacles, we start to see them as opportunities for growth. This shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering. We might look at moments of loneliness not as proof of inadequacy, but as invitations to deepen our relationship with ourselves. We may come to understand that every challenge we face alone builds a stronger sense of independence and self-reliance. This mental shift doesn't make difficulties disappear, but it does give us a powerful tool to approach them with curiosity and hope rather than despair. Developing resilience also requires a level of self-compassion that allows us to forgive ourselves when we feel low, uncertain, or even defeated. Life can be tough, and resilience doesn't mean being strong every moment. It's important to give ourselves permission to have bad days, to feel vulnerable, or even to feel like giving up. Resilience is less about being unbreakable and more about knowing that even when we bend, we won't shatter. Another significant component of resilience is cultivating a sense of purpose. When we have a guiding purpose or a clear sense of what truly matters to us, we're better able to endure life's challenges. Purpose gives us direction, something to focus on and strive for, even when circumstances feel less than ideal. This purpose could be a career goal, a personal dream, a desire to help others, or a commitment to self-improvement. When we're anchored by purpose, we find the motivation to keep moving forward, regardless of our external circumstances. Our resilience also encourages us to build a toolbox of strategies for navigating tough times. These tools can be simple practices like keeping a gratitude journal, setting small achievable goals, or engaging in regular physical activity. Each of these tools supports our emotional well-being, giving us something to lean on when times get tough. Over time, we come to know which tools work best for us, and we can reach for them whenever we need support. In moments of solitude, these small, self-sustaining practices serve as reminders that we have the power to take care of ourselves. Finally, emotional resilience allows us to develop a hopeful outlook even when life feels uncertain. Hope is an anchor that reminds us there is light at the end of every tunnel, that no feeling is permanent, and that every season of life has its purpose. By embracing hope, we cultivate the resilience to look beyond our current circumstances and trust that better days are possible. Hope doesn't deny the reality of our struggles. Instead, it provides the strength to face them, reminding us that we have the capacity to endure, to heal, and to thrive. For a woman who feels isolated, emotional resilience transforms solitude from a state of lack into a state of empowerment. It's about understanding that while we may not have control over everything, we do have control over how we respond. We learn to carry ourselves with grace, to find strength within, and to stand confidently in the knowledge that we can face whatever comes our way. Through resilience, we build a foundation of inner peace, a source of strength that no external factor can take away. Self-awareness is a journey into the depths of who we are, the place where we explore our motivations, examine our emotions, and seek clarity about our values and goals. It's not simply a reflection of what we know about ourselves on the surface. It's a process of delving into our thoughts, fears, dreams, and behaviors to truly understand what drives us. For a woman with few close friends, cultivating self-awareness and personal growth becomes a powerful anchor, guiding her on a journey of self-discovery that leads to genuine fulfillment, even in solitude. One of the first steps to self-awareness is practicing honest self-reflection. In our daily lives, it's easy to fall into patterns and routines without stopping to ask why we do what we do, feel what we feel, or react the way we react. Self-reflection invites us to pause and examine these patterns without judgment. Perhaps we notice that certain situations make us feel insecure or that certain people drain our energy. We begin to identify what triggers certain emotions and why. This kind of honest introspection enables us to understand ourselves at a deeper level, revealing how our past experiences, beliefs, and values shape our present. As we become more self-aware, we begin to notice our thoughts more clearly and recognize the internal dialogue we carry with us. Sometimes we may discover that our inner voice is critical or negative, feeding into self-doubt or insecurity. This awareness gives us an opportunity to reframe these thoughts and cultivate a more compassionate, supportive inner dialogue. When we approach ourselves with kindness and grace, we build the foundation for personal growth. Self-awareness helps us become our own best friend, encouraging and guiding ourselves with the love and understanding that we might wish to receive from others. Self-awareness also leads to a clearer understanding of our strengths and weaknesses. By acknowledging both, we create a balanced perspective on who we are, embracing our unique qualities while recognizing areas for improvement. For instance, maybe we see that we have a natural talent for empathy or creativity, yet we struggle with setting boundaries or managing our time effectively. By becoming aware of these aspects, we take ownership of them. We can celebrate our strengths and leverage them while also setting intentional goals to work on the areas that need attention. Personal growth thrives in this environment of honest self-assessment, where we are willing to confront and address our imperfections. In addition to internal reflection, cultivating self-awareness encourages us to explore our values, the principles, and beliefs that matter most to us. When we are aware of our values, we gain a clearer sense of direction and purpose. Our values become a compass, guiding our decisions and actions, especially when life feels uncertain or challenging. For example, if we value authenticity, we may focus on being true to ourselves, even when it's difficult, rather than conforming to what others expect. If we value kindness, we prioritize actions that reflect compassion and respect for others. Living in alignment with our values builds confidence and self-trust because we know we are honoring what matters most to us. Self-awareness also enhances our ability to form meaningful relationships, whether friendships or deeper connections. When we know ourselves well, we're more likely to attract relationships that reflect our authentic self, rather than relationships based on trying to fit in or seeking validation. We understand what we need in friendships and can set boundaries that protect our well-being. This clarity helps us avoid relationships that drain or discourage us, and instead we seek connections that inspire and uplift us. Even if we are currently alone, self-awareness prepares us for future relationships built on genuine understanding and respect. Another crucial aspect of self-awareness is developing emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence allows us to understand and manage our own emotions while also recognizing the emotions of others. By cultivating emotional intelligence, we become more adept at responding to life's challenges with patience and empathy. We learn how to handle difficult emotions without letting them control us, and we approach others with compassion rather than judgment. This skill is invaluable in every aspect of life, as it enables us to navigate conflict, communicate effectively, and build stronger connections. Self-awareness naturally leads to personal growth, which is the process of evolving into the best version of ourselves. Growth isn't always easy. It often requires us to confront uncomfortable truths, change habits, or let go of beliefs that no longer serve us. However, this growth is deeply rewarding. Each step forward brings us closer to our potential, equipping us with new strengths and insights that shape who we are becoming. Personal growth is not about perfection, it's about progress, about becoming more aligned with who we truly are and who we aspire to be. In the solitude that sometimes accompanies a life without close friendships, the pursuit of personal growth becomes even more important. We recognize that we have an incredible opportunity to invest in ourselves, to use this time to become wiser, stronger, and more resilient. We set goals that challenge us, whether in our career, hobbies, health, or spiritual practice. We take courses, learn new skills, and push ourselves to step out of our comfort zones. With each step of growth, we gain confidence, resilience, and a deeper sense of purpose. One of the most beautiful outcomes of self-awareness and personal growth is that it transforms how we see ourselves. We begin to see that we are capable, worthy, and whole, even in the absence of external validation. We no longer rely on others to affirm our value because we have cultivated a profound sense of self-worth from within. This journey teaches us that we don't need to be surrounded by people to feel complete. Instead, we realize that the most important relationship we'll ever have is the one with ourselves. As we continue to grow, we become the kind of person who attracts meaningful connections because we radiate authenticity, confidence, and a strong sense of self. People are naturally drawn to those who are self-aware and committed to personal growth because these qualities create a presence that is both inspiring and comforting. And even if friendships take time to blossom, we know that we are capable of walking our path with courage, resilience, and purpose. Self-awareness and personal growth are lifelong pursuits, ones that offer infinite rewards. They allow us to live a life that is intentional, fulfilling, and deeply connected to our truest self. For a woman with few friends, this journey is a gift that transforms solitude from a place of emptiness to one of profound strength and self-discovery. Embracing this path means we are never truly alone because we carry within us a deep, unwavering connection to our own inner wisdom and worth. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most essential and empowering acts of self-care we can engage in. Boundaries are the guidelines we set for ourselves that define what we are willing to accept and what we will not allow in our lives, whether in relationships, work, or even how we treat ourselves. For a woman with few close friends, boundaries can become a fortress of self-respect and a beacon of self-worth, allowing her to protect her energy, nurture her well-being, and define her identity on her own terms. Setting boundaries begins with understanding that they are not walls meant to shut people out, but rather guidelines that help us engage with others in healthy, balanced ways. A boundary allows us to communicate clearly about what we need, what we value, and how we wish to be treated. Without them, we may find ourselves drained, overwhelmed, or even resentful as others may unintentionally take advantage of our time, energy, or kindness. Healthy boundaries act as the framework for all our relationships, first and foremost, our relationship with ourselves. A critical aspect of setting boundaries is recognizing our own needs and values. Before we can communicate our boundaries to others, we must understand what they are. This involves getting in touch with our feelings and noticing when certain situations make us feel uncomfortable, overwhelmed, or disrespected. For example, we might notice that certain interactions leave us feeling emotionally exhausted, or that certain people repeatedly ask more of us than we're able to give. These realizations help us clarify our limits and give us the insight needed to set boundaries that protect our emotional well-being. Once we understand our needs, the next step is learning to communicate these boundaries assertively and compassionately. Setting boundaries doesn't have to be confrontational. It's simply a way to express what we need to feel safe and respected. This might look like telling a friend, "I can't stay out late tonight, I need time to rest," or letting a family member know, "I'm not comfortable discussing that topic." It may seem challenging at first, especially if we're used to putting others' needs before our own. But learning to communicate boundaries is a skill that grows stronger with practice. When we stand by our boundaries, we show ourselves and others that our needs are valid and worthy of respect. Healthy boundaries are especially important in relationships as they create the foundation for mutual respect and understanding. Boundaries allow us to maintain a sense of individuality within a relationship, protecting us from losing ourselves in another person's expectations or desires. They give us the space to honor our own priorities and stay true to our values, even as we connect with others. In friendships, for example, boundaries might involve deciding how often we're available to meet up or communicating the types of support we can offer without feeling overextended. In this way, boundaries keep relationships balanced and free from unnecessary resentment or guilt. When we have few close friends, boundaries take on an additional layer of importance as they help us protect our solitude and make the most of our alone time. Without boundaries, we may feel pressured to say yes to social engagements or requests from others out of fear of disappointing them or feeling guilty. However, when we set clear boundaries, we can make intentional choices about how we spend our time, choosing to engage in activities that nurture us and align with our values. Setting boundaries with ourselves, such as allocating time for self-care, personal growth, or simply enjoying our own company, helps us cultivate a deeper connection with ourselves, making solitude a source of joy and fulfillment rather than loneliness. Boundaries also empower us to protect our emotional energy. When we allow ourselves to be accessible at all times, we risk becoming drained and depleted. By setting boundaries around when and how we engage with others, we create space for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. For example, we might limit how much time we spend on social media or choose not to engage in conversations that drain our energy or trigger stress. Protecting our energy in this way is not selfish, it's a necessary act of self-preservation that allows us to show up fully in the areas of our lives that truly matter. Boundaries can also help us avoid toxic or unhealthy relationships. When we have a clear sense of what we're willing to accept, we're less likely to tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or emotional abuse. Boundaries act as a filter, allowing us to engage only with those who respect us and share our values. They give us the strength to walk away from relationships that undermine our well-being or make us feel small. This sense of empowerment comes from knowing that we have the right to decide who we allow into our lives and on what terms. We're no longer at the mercy of others' demands or expectations. Instead, we stand firm in our own worth, choosing relationships that uplift and support us. Setting boundaries is also crucial for managing our time and priorities effectively. When we say yes to everything, we dilute our focus and spread ourselves too thin, often leading to burnout. But when we set clear boundaries around our time, we're able to prioritize what truly matters and invest our energy in meaningful pursuits. This might mean turning down invitations or declining requests for help when we're already stretched thin. By honoring our own needs, we free ourselves from the pressure to please everyone, allowing us to engage fully in the activities and goals that bring us joy and fulfillment. Another essential aspect of setting boundaries is learning to release the guilt or discomfort that may come with it. Society often praises self-sacrifice, especially for women, and it can feel uncomfortable or even selfish to assert our needs. However, setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. We're not responsible for meeting everyone's expectations or fulfilling every request. Instead, we're responsible for taking care of ourselves, which in turn allows us to show up as our best selves in all areas of life. When we release the guilt, we embrace the freedom to prioritize our well-being and build a life that aligns with our values. Finally, setting boundaries fosters a profound sense of self-trust. Each time we honor our boundaries, we reinforce the message that our needs matter and that we are capable of advocating for ourselves. This self-trust becomes a powerful foundation for self-confidence and resilience. When we respect our own limits, we're less likely to feel resentful or exhausted, and we develop a greater sense of control over our lives. We know that, no matter the circumstances, we have the tools and the strength to protect our peace and well-being. In the end, boundaries are not just about keeping others out, they're about protecting what we cherish most within ourselves. They are an expression of our values, our self-worth, and our commitment to living authentically. When we set boundaries, we create a life that reflects who we truly are, free from the pressure to conform or overextend. For a woman with few friends, boundaries are a powerful means of claiming her independence and ensuring that her time, energy, and emotions are directed toward what nourishes her spirit. By embracing the importance of boundaries, she honors herself, affirms her worth, and steps into a life of self-respect and true fulfillment. Learning to embrace your own company can be one of the most liberating and empowering experiences in life. For a woman with few close friends, cultivating a meaningful relationship with herself is essential, not just as a substitute for companionship, but as a path to self-discovery, personal growth, and true contentment. In a world that often tells us our worth is reflected by our social connections or by how many people surround us, learning to enjoy our own company allows us to redefine fulfillment and find joy within. Embracing solitude doesn't mean isolating yourself, rather, it's about learning to become comfortable, even joyful, in your own presence. In solitude, we find the space to explore who we are beyond our roles, relationships, or societal expectations. We discover the contours of our own minds, our desires, and our values, free from outside influence. Solitude allows us to ask ourselves deep questions about what truly matters to us and gives us the room to listen to our own inner wisdom. Without the distractions of external voices, we can reconnect with our inner voice, which often holds the answers we've been seeking. One of the first steps to embracing your own company is to reframe how you view alone time. Instead of seeing it as a lack of connection or a void to be filled, start to see it as an opportunity to build a richer inner life. This shift in perspective can be transformative. When we learn to view alone time as a space for self-connection, we start to see solitude as a gift. We get to know ourselves, developing a sense of self-reliance that no external relationship can provide. As we start to enjoy our own company, we may find ourselves developing interests, hobbies, or passions we hadn't previously explored. Solitude gives us the freedom to experiment, to try new things, and to nurture creative pursuits. Maybe you pick up a book that challenges your worldview, start painting as a way to express emotions, or even begin journaling to capture your thoughts and dreams. These activities become more than just ways to fill time. They are expressions of your individuality and unique inner landscape. In this process, you begin to realize that being alone doesn't equate to being lonely. Instead, it becomes a powerful form of self-expression and a channel through which you connect more deeply with yourself. Learning to embrace your own company also means learning to be comfortable with silence. In today's fast-paced, noise-filled world, silence can feel intimidating or uncomfortable. But silence can be incredibly healing. When we allow ourselves to sit quietly without filling every moment with noise or activity, we create space for reflection and insight. In the quiet, we can process emotions, release stress, and gain clarity. Silence offers us a mirror, reflecting back parts of ourselves we may not have acknowledged. Self-compassion also plays a crucial role in learning to love our own company. When we're alone, we may become acutely aware of our inner critic, the voice that judges or questions our worth. Practicing self-compassion means learning to meet that voice with kindness instead of criticism. When you're alone, offer yourself grace. If you feel a pang of loneliness, acknowledge it without judgment. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel this way and that you're here for yourself. Self-compassion turns solitude into a safe space where you can feel all your emotions without shame or guilt. In this space of kindness, you allow yourself to grow, to heal, and to find peace. Over time, embracing your own company cultivates a sense of self-confidence that radiates outward. When you are comfortable with yourself, you're less likely to seek validation from others or to settle for relationships that don't serve you. You become more selective, prioritizing connections that are genuine and fulfilling over those that are superficial or draining. People sense when someone is truly comfortable in their own skin, and it often draws like-minded individuals who value authenticity and depth. By becoming your own best friend, you set the standard for all other relationships in your life, ensuring they align with your values and bring positive energy into your life. As you deepen your connection with yourself, you may find that embracing your own company enhances your mental and emotional well-being. Solitude gives you the chance to check in with yourself, to ask how you're really doing, and to make adjustments as needed. Maybe you realize that you've been neglecting self-care, or that you need to set stronger boundaries in certain areas of your life. Finally, embracing your own company creates a deep sense of inner peace. In solitude, you become acquainted with your own rhythms, discovering what brings you joy and what helps you feel grounded. This self-awareness leads to a sense of calm and contentment that is not easily shaken by external events. In a world that often glorifies extroversion and social connections, choosing to embrace your own company is a bold and empowering act. It's a declaration that your worth isn't determined by how many people surround you, but by the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. Solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place where you can recharge, reconnect, and find inspiration. In conclusion, the journey of being a woman with few close friends, or even walking alone for a time, isn't a deficit, but an opportunity for profound self-discovery and growth. By cultivating self-compassion, we make space for kindness toward ourselves. Through vulnerability, we unlock the courage to show up authentically. Developing emotional resilience equips us to weather life's challenges, and self-awareness enables us to align more deeply with our true selves. Setting healthy boundaries allows us to protect our peace and define our values, while embracing solitude helps us build a friendship with ourselves that becomes the foundation of a fulfilling life. Ultimately, this journey isn't about avoiding connections, but about transforming the relationship we have with ourselves. When we cultivate these inner resources, we discover that we are whole and complete on our own, no longer relying on external relationships for validation or self-worth. This inner strength allows us to engage with others from a place of true confidence, attracting the connections that align with our values and support our growth. Embracing the beauty of our own company, we find joy, resilience, and a sense of peace that no one can take from us.